Stephen Nichols from Oklahoma City. Now, this year's LTC theme is No Greater Love, so I'm going to talk about the word love. I think we all understand that love is something very important, something with much value. In 1 John 4:8, it says, "The one who does not love does not know God, for God is love." So by understanding love better, we can also understand God better. Now, what does it look like to love others? It says in Proverbs 13, verse 24, "He who withholds his rod hates his son, but he who loves him disciplines him diligently." When a father disciplines his son, is that what his son wants? No. But the father is still doing it out of love. When you love someone, you don't want to do just what they want, but what's best for them. Now let's take a look at this year's theme verse. John 15, verse 13. "Greater love has no one than to lay down one's life for one's friends." Now chances are you're not going to have to physically die for your friends, but by putting aside your own wants and pleasures for the sake of serving God and serving others, you are sacrificing your own life for them. John tells us that the biggest sacrifice we can make is also the greatest love we can show, which means if we want to love more, we also need to sacrifice more. One of the most insightful passages about love is 1 Corinthians chapter 13, also known as the love chapter. So I'm going to start reading in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 4. "Love is patient, love is kind, and is not jealous. Love does not brag and is not arrogant, does not act unbecomingly, it does not seek its own, is not provoked, does not take into account a wrong suffered, does not rejoice in unrighteousness, but rejoices with the truth, bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, and endures all things." Now, I think we can all understand what he's saying in verses 4 through 6, but what I want to take a closer look at today are the 4 phrases in verse 7, starting with bears all things. The phrase bears all things, at first glance, might look like it's talking about endurance, but that is the word used in the last phrase in this verse. I think this is something a little bit different. The Greek word stego used in this phrase is a verb that has this meaning: to cover, to protect, to keep secret, to hide of the errors and faults of others, to bear up against, and so endure, forbear. This phrase seems to carry a sense of covering, supporting, and protecting. It is not a protection or ignoring of sin, but a protection of the person. When we develop a relationship of love with another person, we have access to them, knowing them and having the power to protect and build up, or to hurt deeply, depending on how we choose to behave. Having this love for another person means that we will protect them from gossip, ridicule, or harm. This does not mean that the sin will not need to be addressed if it is involved, but to do so in a manner designed to cause the least harm and to encourage the best of that person. The second phrase in verse 7 is believes all things. In context, we know that Paul is explaining to the Corinthians what their regard for one another should look like. Paul is describing an attitude towards others that is manifested in action. As such, the expression believes all things is best understood as the attitude which assumes the best in others. To believe all things means that we give others the benefit of the doubt. It means that we expect the best. Believing all things means that we are willing to trust one another. The third phrase in verse 7 is love hopes all things. To hope all things means to confidently expect the long-term spiritual growth of others. To hope all things means that we never consider another to be a lost cause. It means that we never give up on each other, even when we see one another fall. The fourth and final phrase in verse 7 is endures all things. In this context, to endure all things means that we are willing to remain in difficult situations for the sake of one another. Rather than seeking our own ease through escape, we go through hard things for each other and support one another. This means if others are making life difficult for us, we don't look for a way out. I hope you have gained some helpful insight from Paul's letter to the Corinthians, but we have just scratched the surface of what God's inspired word has to say about love. Much of it is said through example, especially through Jesus. I suggest next time you read through the story of Jesus, you focus on his examples of love and how you can put it into practice in your own life. Thank you.